I have a pen. I have a
printer.
Holy Jesus. What is that?
This is a 3D pen, the forbidden love child of Mr. Bic and the world's best $60 printer. These are typically marketed towards kids and crafty types for air doodling with our favorite plastic noodles. But if you're a masochist, you can spend days of your life making stuff like this. On the other hand, you have people like myself with little artistic ability and an insatiable desire to glue stuff together with plastic. In this group we have makers and hobbyists of all sorts, looking to join, repair, and modify plastic parts. But if you fall into this group, you are probably using these wrong. The basic construction of this is pretty similar to a hot glue gun. When you press the trigger, you are pushing the glue stick into a hot nozzle, which liquefies the glue before it squirts out the end. A 3D pen does essentially the same thing, except you have a little motor pushing the plastic filament instead of glue stick. I think the main problem is that most people use these like a hot glue gun, basically just squirting molten plastic onto the parts they want to join. But for a strong joint, these should really be used like a welder. Hot glue. You squirt it onto some stuff, it sticks to everything and holds that stuff together when it cools down. It's the stickiness of the glue itself that holds them together. The temperature of each piece doesn't really matter. This is not the case for welding. In welding, you might have two pieces and a filler material. Just like with hot glue, you heat up the filler until it becomes liquid and squirt it between the pieces you want to join. But it isn't the stickiness of the filler that holds our two parts together. In welding, you need heat not only to liquefy the filler, but also to heat the parts at the weld location so that the weld filler merges with the base material and two parts become one. If you've ever heard of a cold weld or a cold solder joint, these are essentially cases where the filler has been liquefied, but the base material didn't get hot enough to properly merge with the filler, producing a weak weld. We typically think of welding as a method for joining metals, but the same principles apply to plastics as well. Plastic welders do exist, usually looking something like this. Typically, these use hot air to heat both the base material and the filler. While I don't have a plastic welder, I do have a butane torch and some 3mm filament. Here we can see part of the problem. Hot air works great when you're welding big pipes, but when dealing with relatively thin-walled 3D printed parts, it's a bit like performing surgery with a pocket knife. 3D pens are meant to be cheap, compact, and comfortable in tight spaces, just like every man's deepest desire, one of these tiny Japanese trucks. But where this tiny truck trades size and cost at the expense of barely being able to hit highway speeds, 3D pens give up thermal conductivity and power output. By using a low-power ceramic nozzle, these pens can avoid needing a heat break, heat sink, or fan. While this is fine for plastic air doodling, or doing whatever this is, it is less fine for a tool that welds plastic parts. This pen here is one of the better ones I could find, but it still can only output 10 watts max, and the poor conductivity of its ceramic nozzle means this measly output is not transferred to the base parts very effectively. This can still be used to make a welded joint, but the process is agonizingly slow. What we really want is something with a conductive metal tip and much more power, something closer to a modern 3D printer hot end. If we need something similar to a modern hot end, why don't we just start there? I went with this bamboo hot end, as it's nice and compact, has a heater, heatsink, and fan already integrated. The nozzle is also fairly long and pointy, which will make the finished pen more usable, as we'll see. For the extruder gears, I used a set for the A1 series printers, as they let us fit the gears a little bit closer to the hot end. We don't need the kind of precision that a stepper motor offers, but we should still aim for the same max torque. I did some looking on AliExpress until I found this nice little gear motor. Once we add some gearing, it should have about the same max torque and speed as the stock extruder. Now, with our shopping done, we have to actually do the building part. I used Onshape to CAD up an enclosure with all the bits. Onshape is a cloud-based CAD program. It's also free for personal use. If you can't tell by my library of parts, I quite like it. Not sponsored or anything, but I would. Anyway, here we have some 3D printed gears that'll step up our motor torque. We'll have our trigger vaguely in this area. Here we'll be adding the second part of our extruder gears. Most of these cylindrical cutouts will be getting bearings of various sizes, and this area here will be for electronics. I wouldn't exactly say I'm electronically inclined, so I like using these little pre-made modules. You can usually find them pretty cheap on AliExpress or on AliExpress with faster shipping. For this project, we'll need 2 motor controllers, one for the motor and another control the heater temperature. We'll also need some kind of display, a DC to DC converter, and of course the brains of the operation, a $1 microcontroller. I was originally planning on hand wiring everything, make that future me's problem. But as I was getting closer to being done, future Alex became present Alex, and I really didn't want to deal with the pain in the ass that this wiring disaster would be. So thankfully this build is sponsored by JLC CNC. Maybe you've heard of JLC's PCB services. Did you know they also do CNC machining? Well, it's their PCBs that are saving me the wiring headache. These aluminum parts from JLC CNC will be saving the skin of my fingertips. More on that later. They offer CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, even EDM. You can pretty much just upload your model, select some stuff, and get an instant quote. If you have something more complicated, you can also add a drawing and have a real live human provide you a manual quote. With prices starting at just $1, they can do anything from a single part to full production runs. If you need some good parts, fast, for cheap, check them out. And use my link in the description to save up to $123 in coupons. First step in building our pen is soldering up our new boards. We need the display to sit flush with the top of this little cap here, so we'll have to make a little bridge component. Before starting to assemble everything, we gotta salvage the idler gear from our extruder set. And then we need to press in all the bearings in our printed housings. Wiring's a bit tighter than I would have liked, but it's all wired up. We're ready to put it together. Welcome to Half-Baked Camera Focus. We've got half the focus all the time. Okay, well the sparks weren't a good sign. I went to plug in the USB cable into the microcontroller, and this is pretty much what happened. I think I found the source of the problem. These little motor controllers have 4 inputs. One is the forward control signal, one is the reverse control signal, and the other 2 are voltage and ground. These things are essentially fancy relays. They let you control a high power voltage with a lower voltage signal input. Usually the voltage pin is 5 volts coming from the microcontroller and is only used to power the control chips. But on these things, the voltage pin is connected directly to the high voltage input line, meaning that when this was plugged in, we were sending 24 volts to all sorts of microcontroller pins that were not supposed to get it. If I was smart, I would have probed the board and these components before soldering, but hey, this is half-baked research for a reason. We're gonna populate and solder up a new board, but first we gotta cut a few traces to make sure the same thing doesn't happen. We'll have to add a couple wire leads manually later to fix some of the connections we're breaking. Here's our new board all wired up. There were a bunch more problems I discovered along the way, but let's pretend this is only my second attempt. Here you can see those leads we had to add to fix our cut traces. A little assembly and coding later, and we have our finished pen. Let me show you its features. We have 3 buttons for adjusting our temperature set point and extruder speed, basically up, down, and select. When you press the trigger it'll start extruding, and when you let go it'll retract to prevent oozing. If you hold the up and down buttons, it'll enter pulse mode, which seems to be useful for making good welds. One thing you can do with these is a sort of plastic riveting. First you want to plunge the hot nozzle into your base material, and then extrude plastic as you remove it. Our little aluminum machined part can then be used to push down the molten plastic afterwards. Certainly better than using your finger, which has been my process with the off-the-shelf pen. This technique produces a rivet that's as strong as the plastic itself. In the past, I've used it to bond sheet metal and fabric to 3D printed parts. I've made a lot of claims in this video, but at the end of the day, I'm just some guy that spent many hours of his life turning a normal 3D printer hot end into a 3D printer hot end that'll get you banned from American schools. To prove me right or wrong, we'll need to do some. We'll be preparing a bunch of weld test samples. We'll be preparing 4 samples welded with our DIY pen, 4 samples welded with the off-the-shelf pen. We'll also be comparing 1 hot air welded sample, 2 control samples printed solid, and 4 glued samples, glued with both super glue and Gorilla Glue. Then we'll be using this DIY pull tester and seeing at what force they break. So here are some interesting results. We can see the glued samples have a pretty low breaking force, but the properly welded samples for both our DIY pen and our off-the-shelf pen are just a little bit lower than the controls, so pretty strong in general. And our hot air sample is the strongest by a decent margin. One thing we can see here is that the bad weld samples were indeed bad, with a similar strength to the gluing, both super glue and our Gorilla Glue. These were the samples that we kind of just squirted the filament, the plastic, in between both samples without actually heating the base material. I have a theory as to why the hot air sample did better than the others. Many of the welded samples did not fail at the actual weld location, but they did all fail near it. All the samples were printed solid with 100% infill and 8 perimeters, and if they didn't fail at the weld, they failed in this area. This is where the perimeters transition from vertical to horizontal. My theory is that the perimeters and the infill were not bonded perfectly as printed. So during the hot air welding, the extra heat from the hot air helped join these layers together, improving strength, whereas all the other samples, they weren't actually bonded perfectly. To eliminate this layer bonding funny business, we're going to prepare 3 more samples. But this time we're going to be using a 3mm PETG sheet. So we're going to make 1 sample welded with our DIY pen, 1 sample welded with our off-the-shelf pen, and we'll have 1 more control that won't be welded at all. And all these 3 samples have been cut by me, so I don't really want to do any more than that. And this time we can see that, at least for the thicker 3mm samples, our DIY pen does make a stronger weld. Unsurprisingly, the unwelded control sample was the strongest, but interestingly, it was the only sample not to really break. Instead, it kind of yielded at 160 kilograms, basically started to stretch thin. It also had quite a bit more strength than both our welded samples. Both our welded samples again broke at the weld location this time, but interestingly our sample welded with our DIY pen had an additional fracture in the actual base material near the bottom. And here we have a little race between both of our 3D pens to see how much filament they can push out, to get an idea for how much faster our home-built pen is than the one off the shelf. And the results of our little speed race here, we can see that our DIY pen can push out about 73% more filament than the store-bought one. So what have we learned? Well, if you want to join 2 plastic parts together, it helps to pretend you're welding. If you have some patience, you can make a strong joint with one of these, but ideally something like this is better. I might be biased, but I think this thing is pretty neat. I think it'll get a lot of use in the future. But what do you think? Would you want one of these? I'm thinking of refining the design and offering it as a kit you can build yourself. I've pinned a comment below. I'm using it as a poll of sorts. Upvote that comment if you'd want a better version of this thing. If there's enough interest, you'll be seeing an even more better pen in the future. That's all I got this time. Congrats on making it to the end of the video. If you've had a good time, consider liking, subscribing. I have some more stuff coming eventually, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have in the comments, or maybe just roast me if you're feeling spicy. Alright, bye-bye.